As has been previously noted, Isaiah prophesied that in the last days the Lord's church would corrupt the ordinances. Corruption can come in many forms, such as the alteration of the ceremony, the priesthood authority required, prerequisites of participants, and in other ways. In this video and in its sequels, the sacrament will be examined to identify whether or not it has been altered in ways that fulfill Isaiah's prophecy. We will begin with the ceremony. In the Last Supper, the Lord gave his disciples bread to eat and wine to drink. But how much was consumed? Was the sacrament a small corner of bread and a half sip of wine? Or was the portion size more closely to that of a meal, or to use a more appropriate term, a supper? Though the Gospels do not help us make this determination, statements made by Paul, Mormon, and later Joseph Smith are helpful. In his first epistle to the saints in Corinth, Paul criticized the Corinthians for using the Lord's Supper as an excuse to become inebriated. The saints were drinking more wine than just a sip, and some were taking to excess. During Christ's visit to the Americas, Mormon describes the saints as having been filled after consuming the Lord's Supper. Lest we mistake this physical sense of fullness with spiritual fullness, Mormon makes it clear that being filled with the Spirit was a separate event from the partaking of the sacrament itself. Physical and spiritual fullness were complementary but separate. As the Church's own project, the Joseph Smith Papers, indicate, Joseph Smith also used the sacrament as a meal, preparing enough bread and wine to make the attendees' hearts glad. It is clear from the record of the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, and the Restoration that the Lord's Supper should be just that, a supper. The Church's change to this aspect of the ceremony represents a problematic change as prophesied by Isaiah. The Lord has commanded that the priests kneel with the church as they bless the sacrament. That the Lord expects the priests to kneel with the church is another way of saying that he expects the church to kneel with the priests. Moroni records that this was par for the course in the church among the Nephites who knelt with the priests even hundreds of years after the establishment of the sacrament. It should not surprise us that the commandment was reiterated during the Restoration. The alteration of the sacrament by the subtraction of the church kneeling represents a second change to the ordinance. There is also the matter of what to drink and what to eat. Section 27 of the Doctrine and Covenants is an oft-quoted and oft-misunderstood passage. While the Lord did indicate that in principle it did not matter what was drunk or eaten, in practice the Lord maintained his expectation that wine be consumed. Historical records show that after receiving Section 27 by revelation, Joseph used wine for the sacrament. 2 years after receiving Section 27, the School of the Prophets was established by another revelation. In that revelation, the Lord reiterated that wine was to be used in the sacrament. One year following, in 1833, the word of wisdom was given. In that revelation, the use of wine in the sacrament was reiterated. It should not be a surprise that when the Lord instituted the sacrament, he did so with wine in both dispensations, and that Moroni recorded that wine was used in the sacrament hundreds of years after its institution on the American continent. While in principle anything can be used, in practice the Lord expects the use of wine. The Church use of water as a matter of policy and its prohibition of the use of wine is a significant change to the ordinance.